Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by. On the morning shift.
Anything
could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Well, that was an interesting beginning on video, as you would have saw me right at the beginning. Usually it's just the Sudbury News logo. There's always something that there's so many steps to beginning the show that I'll usually, one of them gets kind of missed out in the morning, and I guess I just didn't put it on that segment on the switcher for the Sudbury News logo. However, on the radio, no one would know what was happening there, but for the live stream, I apologize for that. But anyways, you just saw me kind of scrambling at the beginning here. A little bit of technical stuff as I'm producing the show, hosting the show, and trying to make it informative and entertaining at the same time. This is Sudbury News Talk right here in Greater Sudbury on CKLU 96.7 FM. Also streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. We're streaming audio at cklu.ca as well. You click on the Radio Player Canada app. You can listen to us, and you can also download the same Radio Player Canada app and take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. We have a great show planned for you this morning. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, and mainly comment on the program. If you are live on Facebook or YouTube, we'll do our best to get the comments be able to do my best to get the comments read, so that way on the radio people can know what your thoughts are, because this is news and views, Sudbury related, but also a broader area as well, international news. Sometimes the same issues that affect us in Sudbury also affect a lot of people around the world, and we actually get a lot of viewers from around the world, a lot of listeners. And not only on CKLU, I am told, through the station general manager, but we also get a lot of just views on Facebook and YouTube as well. So a lot of people either from Sudbury chiming in, trying to, see what's going on here, or have lived here at some point, or maybe are planning on living here and trying to get, an idea of what's going on here in this great city of ours. So we cover a lot of things in Greater Sudbury, North Shore, surrounding area, Manitoulin, all Northern Ontario, Canada, world. So there's no subject that we are unable to tackle here, as long as it's interesting to those that are aboard on this show. So make sure to comment. I'll do my best to get them read and get them up on the screen as well for those that are live streaming. And with that, I just want to give a shout out to Judy. Good morning. Thanks for being with us. We did not have a show yesterday, so I did make that announcement. Maybe I should have posted it as well on the Facebook page, but sorry for that, for not doing that. We are back today on Tuesday. Good morning, Monique. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Andrea. Andrea, thanks for being with us. My eyesight isn't the greatest, so I have to apologize. Sometimes especially this morning, I've been doing a lot of reading online, and for some reason it's grayed out on Facebook. That's interesting. Oh, Andres. And it is Andre, I guess. So, good morning. Thanks for being with us. David, good morning as well. Stay safe as usual. Good morning, everyone. Danica, thanks for being with us. And Maurice, good morning, with a lot of really great icons here. Really happy icons to start the day off right. It's been kind of a gloomy weekend, but needed for the fires, obviously. So we're happy for that. We'll be back with speaking of weather, we'll be back with that. We'll have a little sports update. We have a special show today. We have part 2 of Ward Councillor of Ward 5, Councillor of Ward 5, Mike Perrant will be joining us and diving deep into some of the city's issues as well as things that would, I'm sure, be informative enough for anyone listening in or watching from anywhere outside of Sudbury as well. So we'll have a great conversation. There's some issues we'll be talking about today, mainly our downtown and all of the things that surround that. There's the arena, there's a library, possible casino. What happened with that? What's happening with downtown in general? What are some of the plans for it moving forward? The opioid crisis involved with that, homelessness, right? So there's a lot of things going on that a lot of cities would also, issues that other cities would be having as well. So if you're not from Sudbury and you're watching the show, maybe it will still be informative enough for you today to stick around. Good morning, Monique. Thanks for being with us as well. Let's dive right in with some weather. We'll be back with that and a little sports update for you right after that. We'll be back after this. And Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. Currently, it is 12 degrees Celsius, light rain. The wind is 19 kilometers from the south. Today, we can expect a few showers ending early this morning and then clearing, high of 16. UV index 3 or moderate tonight, a few clouds and a low of 9. Then Wednesday, mainly sunny, increasing cloudiness in the morning with a 30% chance of showers in the afternoon. And the high will be 21. UV index 8 or very high. That's for tomorrow. And Thursday, you have high of 18, cloudy. Friday, so far, so good, sunny, 21 degrees. And then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, partly cloudy, part mix of sun and cloud, and 26, 27, 28, respectively. So that's the way that your 6-day forecast will be looking, or looks. And I can't believe this. So this is the satellite image over Northern Ontario for those on the radio. There's just a lot of activity in the main bulk of Central and Northern Ontario, all the way up in Timmins, through the Sault, Sudbury, all the way through Ottawa, on down into the United States of precipitation. A lot of precipitation activity. And then you can see some clearing coming in from the west that we'll be getting later and then into Friday for the forecast to be sunny. That's your weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. We'll be back with a little bit of sports and more right after this. All right, and Sudbury Sports brought to you by that Sudbury Sports guy who's Randy Pascal and his website, sudburysports.com. I'm just trying to get the sports report up here and on the screen in front of me so I can actually read it. So the Sudbury Spartans, all three Sudbury Spartans teams in action on Friday night. And I don't know, for some reason, my mouse just stopped working. Okay, that's never happened before. Okay, here we go. Now it's back. Tremendous defensive effort was enough to overcome the sputtering offense as the Sudbury Spartans men's team dropped to 0-2 on the season with a 10-1 loss at the Rocky DiPietro field in Sault Ste. Marie. On Saturday night, unfortunately, we lost, I believe it was 15-6 when it was all said and done. To the Sioux Steelers at home a week earlier. The Spartans' defense was even better than it had been in a 15-6 loss to the same Sioux Steelers a week earlier, following a good week of practice to clean up a few trouble spots. So even though they had a good defensive effort, we still lost 10-1 in the Sioux. Also in action were the other two Sudbury Spartans teams, not only the senior men's, but the under 18 and under 16. But unfortunately, all of them lost in the Sioux the same day on Saturday. It was a long day for the Spartans program on Saturday as they lost all 3 games to Sault Ste. Marie. The under 18 Spartans gave up 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to fall 43-8 to the Sioux Sabercats, while the Sudbury under 16 squad dropped a heartbreaking 34-28 decision in the first game of the day. Spartans under 16, they had a lead going into the fourth quarter, but then weren't able to hold on to it. So they had a 21-12 lead. So both of the other squads, other than the men's team, they're 1-1 on the season, but the men's team is 0-2. It's a full helping of the Sudbury North Bay rivalry with the under 16 Spartans hosting the Bulldogs at 1 p.m. and the under 18s facing their Highway 17 rivals at 4 p.m. And the men's team will be at 7 p.m. at James Jerome Field, all on Saturday. So make sure to get out and support your Sudbury Spartans, all 3 teams on Saturday. That is your Sudbury Sports, brought to you by that Sudbury Sports guy, Randy Pascal. And his website, sudburysports.com. We'll be back shortly. Actually, Randy Pascal, speaking of Randy Pascal, he also has a story here. Locals make their mark at the OFSA track and field event. Sudbury baseball, soccer squads also compete at the provincials. And so that Sudbury sports guy, he that's his tagline he goes by. Anyways, he wrote for the Sudbury Star. If you want to catch all of the details on that, you just go to our Sudbury News Facebook page and click on that story. You can catch all the details from Randy Pascal reporting on OFSA. Anyways, we'll be back with Mike Perrant, Ward 5 Councillor for the City of Greater Sudbury, and much, much more. Your comments. We'll be back right after this. All right, and without further ado, which I think is a phrase that's used way too much, I promised myself I would never say that, but I just did. Mike Perrant, Ward 5 Councillor. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you this morning, AJ?
I'm doing good. We had such a great conversation last week, and I know we've emailed back and forth about the possibility of coming back on again, so I'm glad that you're here. I think there's been a lot of topics that we didn't get a chance to cover on the first show, and I'm hoping this won't be the last show. I'm hoping that we'll be able to have you back more on a more regular basis, because I think it's very informative for people here in Greater Sudbury and abroad. So there's some things we didn't get to last show, and so maybe we can dive right in. I don't know if you were listening to the beginning, but I kind of set it up a bit. I think there's a few issues in and surrounding the downtown itself that we can spend probably, 3 years talking about nonstop. So we'll try to do our best within a 40-minute period or so to unpack the issues. Let's start first, though, with the arena and what happened. If you want to give a little bit of background, what happened with the whole arena thing, that was a huge topic for a long time. And then we'll move on from there, because I think it just kind of segues nice into all the other things.
Yeah, the history, as I know it, some time ago, the city decided they want to build a new arena, and under the former council, different options were considered, and they had come down to 2 options. One was a downtown new build, and the other one was on the Kingsway, just across from Levake Street. And the thoughts at the time were to make it more of an entertainment district. It was a very divisive topic on council and within the city, and that's a real shame. And I think that perhaps some earlier, better communication could have helped ensure that we didn't go down that path. But it continued to remain divisive all the way through until last summer. And when there was a decision point to go or no go, the price tag came in and it was astronomical compared to original estimates. So I think the original estimates were around 85, 90 million as far as what the taxpayers would be on the hook for. And the amount presented last summer was, 215 million. And there was some risk that it would actually go beyond 215 million. So council, I believe it was last June, decided to not pursue the Kingsway uh, site any longer, and there was a report, or sorry, a request, a direction to staff to come up with a new report that'll be presented to us in a couple of weeks with some new options with respect to an arena.
So I guess I could just say, so now what, kind of thing. What do we do now?
It's a great question, and again, I think especially the newer members of council and the mayor, we've spent a lot of time trying to understand the histories so that we can make the best decisions going forward. I can share my perspective on this. Is I would say I was probably of the opinion that perhaps a renovation of the current arena would be best for the community. I don't think we can take on any more debt. There will be a report that'll be a public today that if you look into our meeting next Tuesday, the staff is recommending 4.7% property tax increases year over year for the next 10 years. That's just to maintain existing services. That's not to address road issues or infrastructure issues. So, the what they're saying is if we want to address all of the issues, we'd be up to over 10% year over year increases to make up for that infrastructure deficit. So there's some huge challenges ahead of us. So I'm really not of the appetite to take on more debt. Nonetheless, we need to be a vibrant city. The mayor has a vision of growth, and if you want to attract people to our city, you need some amenities. You need some things for people to do. If persons from the south find Sudbury more affordable and a place to live, then we need to have things that will attract them here. So spending some sleepless nights on this, I think my perspective is if we were to renovate the old arena, would probably take most of the money that was set aside. I think initially there was about 90 million, about 5.5 was spent on the old Kingsway location. So it leaves us with about 84 million. We could probably cover a full renovation, but you're still left with an older arena that doesn't have really anything new to offer other than a refreshed look. If we look at a new build, we probably can't afford it on our own. So I think that I'd be interested in like this public-private partnership where if we can get a partner, and it'd have to be more than an arena, I guess, because there has to be some economic benefit to the city. So if we're going to spend this kind of money and we spend the old arena, I don't believe there's anything new coming as far as new revenues to us. Whereas if we do something, and I'd likely favor the downtown, I think that would be an opportunity for health. You mentioned earlier issues downtown. I think this is part of the solution that we'd want to see like a hotel tied to the venue. So it could be an arena, it'd be a basketball arena. It would also be an entertainment arena and also a conference center. In my other life, we host an annual conference and we're at capacity every year because there are no larger venues in Sudbury to host this. Whereas if we had a conference center tied to an arena, imagine the possibilities. And Sudbury is just such a hot spot with the critical minerals and the EV technologies that probably a big opportunity for us to attract 4 or 5 big shows a year to the city. And again, huge economic spinoff. So having considered all things present in front of us, all options, and we're waiting for those formal options through a report pending, I'd likely favor going that route. If we're going to spend that money, it should be in a manner that we have a high level of certainty that there's going to be some economic benefit to our community, and it'll actually help us deal with our downtown issues. And I know probably some of the viewers here are going to say, well, what about parking and the opiates crisis and persons and the risk? I hear all of that. I work downtown. I walk downtown almost daily. So I see these things. I'm aware of it. I see this as part of the solution. I mean, if you want to fix the downtown, then invest in it. And I think that if we go down this road of building an event center, if we can find this public-private partnership that would really reduce the risk to the taxpayer, then I think that we can at the same time be working on the issues we have downtown, the societal issues. And being a member of the public health, I'm on the board of public health as well. I'll be very pushy as to our efforts into dealing with those issues. I sat on the federal minister's opiates roundtable, listening to the issues, and no one has a silver bullet solution. But I believe there are definitely some strategies that we can consider to help deal with these. So I've said a lot. I'll pause there, AJ.
Well, you kind of got a little bit ahead of us because I do want to tackle the what you just mentioned. So we'll come back to that, and that's great that you mentioned it. But I can't really think. So you mentioned public-private partnership. I can't really think of any kind of billion-dollar industries or businesses that operate in and around Sudbury that we could possibly partner with. Do we have any of those going on around the city that's been around for quite a long time that we could possibly work with?
Yeah, so I don't know. Again, this is a new world for me. I'm trying to learn, listening to what other municipalities have done and understanding the risks involved. Again, for me, my perspective is we have to not bring any new risk to the taxpayers, not today, not in 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So there are other municipalities that have had, arenas or event centers that they've gone to a public-private partnership where really the private partner runs the facility. There are some tax dollars to build the facility, and it gives more money, if you will, because the private partnerships contributions greatly increase the amount available for the capital spend. And I think in our case, there's definitely justification for another hotel in Sudbury. Studies have supported that, we can definitely use another hotel. We're often at capacity. So if you're going to bring in another hotel, you'd probably want to be able to tie that into what we're doing now. So again, we probably need to, again, waiting for a report from our staff, but I really strongly believe that if we could build a hotel in the downtown, tie it into an arena event center, and then find creative ways to deal with the parking, I think we'd be in a much better place than just taking the money and doing a renovation into the old arena, or saying we're going to do this on our own and build a new arena where we know that if the Kingsway site came in around 215, maybe construction costs have come down a little bit, but you'd probably still be borrowing another $100 million, and we just can't afford to do that.
Now, to me, like the idea of the Valet Arena and the Glencore Conference Center comes to mind, because that's what I've kind of seen in other communities where there's large industry and they somewhat almost want to showcase the idea to the world that they are, this is part of their fingerprint on the community, and it's kind of like a trophy in a way for them to kind of show this, being part of the community. But I guess that would take some, you know, working together, somebody, being able to have that conversation with these companies and having that relationship. Do you think that's something we could ever see?
I would be hoping so. I mean, I remember the days where the Sky Dome was the Sky Dome, and now it's got a corporate brand to it. I probably didn't like that at first. I like the idea of the Montreal Forum, the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens, the Sky Dome. But the world has changed, and we see sponsorship towards such venues being the norm. The first time I had really seen this was when I went to Europe for work, and noted that it was not uncommon for almost any venue to be associated with a private sector firm, and you got the dollars that came with that. So, I definitely think that would need to be in scope. Again, we're looking at a fairly significant amount of money, and I don't know what that private sector public partner could look like. But I do believe that that would be the best opportunity for us to kind of have our cake and eat it too, being able to build an event arena center while mitigating the risk to the property taxpayers.
For sure. So Denise is saying private partner question mark. So I guess we're kind of talking about what that would mean now. And then also Stephen is saying awesome insights about the downtown is already an entertainment district, and thinks renovating the existing arena would be cheaper, um, than doing the new build.
Yeah, and Steven's probably right. I
Yeah,
mean, we'd save a lot of money. I think the bigger challenge, what I've learned is, there's an appetite to try and attract bigger acts to Sudbury. We are kind of we are kind of the capital of Northern Ontario. That's how I see us, and that's how I think we should establish ourselves. This is
For
Northern
sure.
Ontario's capital, and we have a number of communities that come to Sudbury for all kinds of things. So the with respect to the arena, it's hard to attract like bigger entertainment acts because of the way the arena is made. And I've just learned this in the last few months. If you're looking at what they usually do is they come in with their 18 wheelers, they back into the facility, and then they set up their stage. And that doesn't seem like that's a real possibility with this old arena. So, I see some comments about cost of living and, persons going arena. And I agree with you, Denise. These are looking at trying to balance, uh, growing our city and having the things that may attract persons to our city. There are a number of our public that love to attend sporting events. So you're trying to balance things. We have 170,000 in our population, and you're trying to understand the needs of those 170,000. Do our best without increasing property taxes to meet those needs. And I, with the downtown not a safe area, this has to be part of the solution. I don't think we want to build an arena and event center that is going to cause issues or concerns for persons. So, to throw the towel in on the downtown and saying, "Oh, it's just too risky. We can't do anything there," is not the right idea. I have friends who have lost, family members over the opiates crisis. It's definitely, of a significant issue in our community, and I think part of the solution is to invest in that area while looking at how we can work with the population that's suffering.
For sure. So a few things coming in here that could be a segue for us, about partners. If we're looking for private partners, I guess Vin is saying beware of certain ones that I guess have strings attached. Maybe some more outside partners. For example, he said Sudbury just received $10 million from SDG toward infrastructure. Is this the private investment that you are referring to? I don't know if you're aware of
I
that
don't
or
know.
not.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it. I don't
Okay.
think CG agenda is. At the moment, there's nothing on the table. I haven't been. Nobody's approached me or discussed. It hasn't been any, staff recommendations. So this is just a conceptual idea that
Hmm.
where my mind is at, and it's not necessarily reflective of that of other councillors or the mayor. But I think that considering all options and the needs of a number of our members of our population, I felt that it's an option that I would likely lean towards. But again, we'd have to look at a lot of information. This isn't something we would jump on and approve and begin building. I think that it would be, a very cautious approach. We'd make sure that there's transparency in the communication so that we don't end up in the same place that the KED was, where it becomes so divisive within council, within our community.
So Tracy here is mentioning she wasn't a fan of kiboshing the KED. And then also, I got to find her earlier comment here about the library. So I thought I was here. Here it is. So so what is going on with the library is what I'd like to know too, because that was a very emotionally charged conversation we've had on the show, and I have yet to find anyone who works in as a librarian possibly, or loves to just sit at a cafe and and chill, in a nice environment without realizing the costs and things, that actually are in favor of the used to be $100 million library, and now it's kind of been governed back to about 70 million or so. So what kind of plans are going on for this new library downtown?
No, that's a great question. Again, under the old council, there was, a decision to, at the time, build a new arena art center. They called it Junction East. I think the cost had started at 40 million, and I think the last estimate was 65, and then it climbed up to, I think, as much as 90 million. And again, I couldn't support that. I just couldn't. And it's not that I have anything against libraries or arts center. Again, there's there's a percentage of our population that likes these. Sitting with some members of the community that are trying to attract new persons to our city, they're suggesting that this is a big deal for some of them. But we're again not going to tie the taxpayer to something. It's not just about the upfront capital; it's the operating costs that
Mm-hmm.
continue to harm the city, right? So
Yep.
you say, oh, we found grants and monies and we build it, but in 3-4 years from now, all of a sudden there's a request back in front of council. Well, things cost more than we expected. We need more money, and all of a sudden the operating costs start to kind of impact our budget. So I think that we're looking at all options, including spaces the city already owns. And if we have spaces the city already owns and we already pay to maintain these, then perhaps we should be considering these spaces before going to any new build. That way we don't really take on any new operating costs, and we're going to make it's a much more efficient way of looking to bring in those types of facilities into the city. So I've been to the arts center off John Street. The facility, I think the staff there's done the best they can, but it's an old building with some real significant issues, and it really wasn't designed to be an art center. And with the HVAC system needed to preserve artwork, it's just not ideal at all. So I don't think that can be the plan to stay there. But I think that we're going to be looking at looking at existing Sudbury locations as part of options for us.
So it's still kind of in the early planning stages. Then is what I'm getting.
Yeah, it was back to the drawing board
Yeah.
to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that there's enough of us aware of the costs, the city operating costs going up, and like I mentioned earlier, that the report that'll be made public in a couple hours is going to suggest what it could look like as far as our operating costs for the next 10 years and what it would take to stay there. That's just not an option. So anything that I can do as a member of council to bring forward ideas to my peers that'll reduce those operating costs, I'm going to do that. I'm also not going to be supporting something that's not going to be able to sustain itself. So something like a library and an art center, we know that they cannot sustain themselves. None of them do. They all receive some subsidy and funding. They also do help build the identity of the community, and they help bring that. It's part of a thriving community. So I'm not opposed to doing something. I just think that we have to really step back and look at what options we have that can kind of do this without again bringing risk to our taxpayers. Well, my next thing, so much waste of money. I don't want any more wasted money. So I'm with you. I wasn't a politician 9 months ago. This is new to me. I was a taxpayer concerned about, I think, primarily the city's finances, which is what led me to lead my great personal time off and this time I spend coaching youth to come and do this.
In your opinion, like if you look at the arena alone and the library now, the idea of building this library, a lot of people in Sudbury kind of scratch their heads and say, what the heck? Like, and again, I think you talked last time about that's one of the reasons why you ran was because, a lot of people were wondering what's going on with the city. We could have so much. It's like you said, it's the hub of the North. There's so much potential here. And for some reason, I think at some point the city was doing well. I think you have the Science North, Dynamic Earth. We did some really good things in the past, and something happened along the lines where we end up being the only OHL city out of the whole league that doesn't have a new or refurbished arena. And we're not the smallest market by far in the OHL market of teams. We're kind of in the middle, if not on the higher end of population out of any of the cities that have OHL teams. And so you have to ask yourself, what's happening? Like why the fracture? Why are we not able to get these things done? What are some of your reasons that you've kind of noticed maybe for this? And you talk about even the casino, like this idea of a new casino. North Bay just, it seems like they come up with the idea and a couple months later the casino's built and their arena is refurbished, and and they're building a multi-pad ice arena. Just by snapping your fingers, all these things get done. What's going on with Sudbury? Why are we not able to do these kinds of things now?
Um, so I actually wrote a letter to the editor last summer, just detailing what you just talked about. It was a tale of two northern cities, right? You have us saying, hey, we want a newer refurbished arena, we want a new casino, and we want a new twin ice pad, and right now we got nothing. And the other city, like you said, and all three projects are moving. The
Hmm.
casino's been built, the arena's been refurbished, and they're I believe breaking ground on the twin ice pad. Um, but I spent time with the former mayor of North Bay, understanding how they got through that. I have a lot of time and respect for him, and it wasn't without controversy. There was percentage of the population that didn't support any of these projects and said we don't have the money, it's too expensive, nobody goes to these things. So it wasn't seamless on their side. They definitely had some challenges, but I believe that the difference has been strong leadership. And I'll call it for what it is. I think that as a mayor, he was a strong leader. He was able to bring his council along and get these decisions passed. And I'm not going to, disrespecting the former mayors. It's a difficult job, but there are times, or that's what we look for in elected officials, especially the mayor position, is to step up and bring that leadership to bring at least a majority of the group along for big decisions. And something's been missing there for some time in Sudbury. And I think that, under the new mayor, the time I spent with him, he's very clear on his vision. He's very collaborative. He spends a lot of time with his council, talking to us as individuals, as a group, and that's going to make the big difference in this one. So if you ask me, do I believe it's going to be very different going forward? I do. Would it be as fast as I would like? It won't be. And I think that we're going to uh, we're going to we're going to take our time to make sure we make the best decisions for our city, but it's definitely not going to be as fast as I would like it to be. And again, having worked a number of years in the private sector, when we don't have to do something, we did it. Um, but the risk was really to the corporation, to the shareholders. In this case, the shareholders are taxpayers. So there's a different level of care we have to put on this, because taxpayers here haven't chosen to become shareholders of the corporation. They bought a house and they pay property taxes. So I find there's a different diligence of care that we have to place when we make these decisions.
And when you say the taxpayer is the shareholder and we're accountable to them, it leads into a story I shared from Sudbury.com today about the city's looking for a public comment on land plan. So there's a draft version of the employment land community improvement plan, and it's available for review. Is it just me, or is this a more of a new thing that the city's been really kind of going towards, is getting the public's input? Has it just been around and I just wasn't aware of it, or is this a newer kind of a thing?
So I'm probably staying at the same place as you.
Okay.
I just my life wasn't consumed by politics.
Hmm.
I was really busy with my career and with youth sport and volunteering in the community. So I didn't pay attention so much. But I do know that when it comes to this council, we've been a little bit more pushy about community engagement. So you look at the fire halls. Whether people appreciate what's been shared or not, we're sitting across from our public and listening to what they have to say. With the sidewalks, same thing. We're doing more or public engagement opportunity sessions. And with the town halls, again, the mayor sat so far, I think, in 8 of the wards. He has a couple left to do. Um, and we listened to what the public had to say, good, bad, or ugly. We stood there and listened to what they had to say. And again, it's an opportunity for me to be influenced as the ward advocate, and to go and do my best to advocate for, the wishes of our communities, of my ward.
So a lot of comments coming in. I'm just kind of reading them as I'm listening and keeping engaged in the conversation. I'm sharing them all on the screen for those watching and trying to get as many comments in as it's flowing with the conversation. And it's so far so good. So thank you for your comments. Keep them coming in. And you do a good job too, Mike, of catching those comments as they're coming up. So thanks for that. You mentioned, so downtown, still controversial as to where the new arena should go, because some people do still feel that it should have been the Keds. So that's not going to go away. People are still going to have their feelings about that. But it does, to me, seem like the momentum is now shifting, now that we've decided we're not building out there. More than likely, I would say 100%, it's going to be downtown. Now, the issues of downtown a lot of people have are the opioid crisis. We can see a lot of people struggling with that. we see them mainly downtown, and that's usually attached with homelessness in a lot of ways. And so we see a large homeless population struggling. Obviously, they're not living life to its fullest and clicking their heels going down the street. They're struggling. And we see this in our face each and every day when we go downtown. People are getting hit by cars more often downtown. That's become a thing. And I think it's because of, these issues. So you said you sat on the federal committee on this. And so what was your experience with that? And then what do you think? I know you said there's no easy solution, and there's probably no solution that we know of, or else we would have done something. But what is your take on all of this with the city and your experience with it so far? And what do you think going forward we could do with it?
Yeah, again, there's a lot involved in this. I was at at Coach Youth Sport for a number of years, and I was the arena last year. And a friend of mine, a person I used to work with, was there, and we started talking. I asked him how he was doing, and he said not well. And he had lost his daughter to an opiate overdose. This was a great family. Both parents work. There's the beautiful home. They have all these things. So I think that there's a bit of a stigma associated with this, that it's just people who are criminals or living on the street, and it's not. All of those affected are people like you and I, and somewhere along the line, maybe there was a bad decision made, maybe the circumstances, but here they are living in what is really a nightmare. And they're once you've had so much time involved in the addiction, your brain doesn't think normal. So again, I really can't emphasize that enough, that it's impacted my inner circle so much that I can somewhat empathize that they just can't make sound decisions like we can make. They just don't have that capacity, the capability to do so. So to continue to say they choose to do this, it's a choice, they shove it in there, that's just not fair. And I think that we have to look at it differently. With the Federal Ministers Roundtable, initially we were looking at trades, and then we were looking at the natural resource sector. And so we again, no easy solutions. And our goal was to help employers help identify when there's an issue within their workplace so that they can do more. And I was trying to look at opportunities for me to learn as I prepare to campaign and run for council, so I can help make better decisions on this. When you say, what can we do? I was reading over the weekend, I think it was City of Houston, how they managed to deal with this. And they actually took the most vulnerable, those with the biggest issues, and found ways to put them in, things like transitional housing. And as they worked towards doing that, they took, my intuitive was say, take those who need the least help, get them first. And they took a different approach, and they've had tremendous success. They didn't have 300-400 homeless. They had in the tens of thousands. And today they're a success story over years of work. So I think we need to look at these cities and learn from them, and then do things like find ways to move into housing. The challenge for us is that the province is accountable for health care and for these types of issues. So when Sudbury's approached them and said, we need some funding for things like transitional housing, we don't get those funds. And that's a huge issue, because now again, it falls onto the municipal taxpayer. So whether we just continue to treat the issues, and if you say, well, there's no cost, there's huge costs. Every time a paramedics are dispatched, every time police services are dispatched, every time a person's brought into a municipal place, a shelter, it's on the municipal taxpayer. So whether we pay for right now transitional housing to hopefully turn a lot of these stories into better stories, or we leave things status quo, we're still costing taxpayers, municipal taxpayers, a lot of money. I do hope that we're able to build relationships with the province and get some of the funding we need to cover the operating costs. But I believe that it's really going to be a long game approach, and doing things like investing into downtown and causing some rejuvenation of downtown is going to be part of the solution.
So I don't know if you had a chance or not. You mentioned Houston as another community, a large community, by the way, similar to probably Toronto, but at the same time, they have the same issues. Other communities are, and looking to the way they're responding is a way to kind of, okay, what's working? What can we do? I don't know if you've heard of the Alberta method, just a little closer to home, focusing more on the rehabilitation rather than, harm reduction. So those are the two things: reduction or rehabilitation. And can you have a little bit of both? Can you kind of have the idea of rehabilitation as your goal, and then harm reduction be one of the pieces of the puzzle in that journey for the individual? And can we set up infrastructure and services that they're cohesive and work together in helping the individual move along and to be rehabilitated? Do you see that at all happening?
Yeah, in my research into rehabilitation is it worked for a percentage of those who go through rehabilitation, and they live a long, great life, and a number of those going through rehabilitation relapse and sometimes go through it again, and some percentage of that population at some point turns things around. So I agree with you. There isn't one thing, and I know there's I have constituents reach out and say, just instead of transitional, go rehabilitation all in. And I'm not sure that's the solution either. I think that, like you're suggesting, AJ, is that really we need options so that rehabilitations will work well for some, and for others they may not be ready for rehabilitation. Maybe transitional will get them to a point where they're ready for rehabilitation, but that we definitely need to look at these options. And Denise saying health as well. So you won't find somebody who advocates that more than myself. I do believe that. We talk about things like arenas and libraries and stuff, but our primary concern probably does need to be looking at those members of our community that are suffering, and how can we help turn that around. To my disappointment, just recently, we're going to receive for those interested, a presentation by the coroner tonight on opiates, and I went through the slide deck, and we've gotten worse in Sudbury. Almost every other municipality has gotten better, like a lot better, and we've gotten worse. And so whatever we're doing, it's not working. So we need to stop, and we need to come up with a better plan. And again, I'll be looking not just on my position as a member of council, but on public health to challenge our leaders and suggest we need to find a better way, and learn from those other communities that have success. And if we're doing the same things and that's not working for us, then we need to find a Sudbury way. But the status quo is simply not acceptable. The office I work out of regularly downtown is it's a corner office, and I can see the white crosses from my office, and those white crosses represent a person. Every single cross represents a person, and that opiates crisis has taken far more lives than something like COVID has. So I know we put so much time and attention on the virus for public health reasons, and I don't want to go down that on this call, but I think that we need to put relatively level of care towards that, and start finding some of the things like transitional and rehab and outreach services to help move persons along, so that we can turn a number of these and get them into some level of housing, some level of quality of life, and off the streets. What I've learned, about homelessness, some persons love not being tied to a home. They love living in a tent, and I don't understand that, but it's not for me to understand. But how can we continue to engage with those members of the community, and hopefully bring them along to a place where we can find a place for them to live, and not be on the streets or living in a tent, in some of the green spaces within our city.
Exactly. I'm a great proponent, and I think Sudbury has this potential as well. If you look at what Sudbury used to look like and what it looks like now with the regreening that we did, I really feel Sudbury has the potential of doing the same thing with the problems we're facing now. If you compare it to the way when we had no trees, black rock everywhere, no soil, nothing grew, all the lakes were acidic and nothing could live. And then now, if you look at years later, so I think I'm referring to what, just recently, like you talked about, you're getting a presentation, and our crisis is getting worse when other communities seem to be getting better. And then we started the conversation with the arena, like what's going on? Why can't we do what other communities do? And you look at our university, the only university of that size to go bankrupt, it's in Sudbury. Like, are these Sudbury problems? I'm not saying they're all connected. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, is there a possibility they could be connected, and there is an underlying, I don't know, a culture or something that we have here that we're not able to kind of just put our boots on and tire and get to work and do things and make things happen? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you suggested earlier. Sudbury was a success story for so many years, right? Things like Science North, Dynamic Earth, the regreening, the cleaning of our lakes. We've done a lot, but again, leadership was key. And I think that when we look at who we're putting into leadership roles, we really need to. Unfortunately, I felt like even campaigning, it almost felt like a bit of a popularity contest. In high school, I didn't do so well in that realm, unfortunately. So it really was about for me listening to the members of the community what they wanted, and I think that when we're looking at who we put into these key positions, whether it's the board of directors or the members of the public at an election, really think through. Look at the qualifications, what the person has accomplished, what their vision is before you make a decision. So with Laurentian, my it impacted my family. Both my daughters were in Laurentian when this happened, and we saw families being impacted worse than us with respect to the consequences of that. And again, no accountability. And I think that's what bothers us a lot is that there's, decisions were made. They were bad decisions. Nobody stepped up and agreed that they made bad decisions. They've actually defended their decisions. And there were consequences to a lot of people and a lot of families don't have this disposable money. They save for years and years in RESP, invested into a public institution like a university. Never could I believe that a university could go bankrupt. I really felt that between the board of directors, the CEO, the promise mechanisms would be in place to protect this from happening. Yet it happened. So again, I think that. When we look at our city, I believe that we do have the leadership that's been much needed, and I think that's going to change things with Laurentian. I think there's just a lot more oversight and they've turned things around. And again, I believe that, 3, 4 years from now, the university is going to have the same level of students that it did prior to this. And again, it's going to be part of the good news story. And that we need to continue to make sure that we put the right persons in leadership roles. In the private sector, in mining, I used to travel to mining operations all over the world, and it was obvious. We can go to an operation and just see the place was just the housekeeping was excellent, the morale was high, the culture was strong, and it usually came down to the person at that top of the operation and how they set expectation, how they engage with their staff, and that they were visionaries, they were diligent, and I think that those are the kind of the key attributes we're looking for when we put persons in these respective roles.
And I think it's right, like you said, leadership in general. There's many leaders of many different things in the community, but it kind of needs one main driver, right? You need a leader, let's say, or you can have a leader that sets the tone for the culture, whether it's in business or any of the, the social aspect of this. You just go into a city, you get a vibe from a city. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. You get into a city, you feel a vibe from it. You're like, something's going on here. Something's cool about this place. What is it? I don't know. Maybe then you start going to different places and you start, okay, maybe it's because of this, maybe it's because of that. But every city has like a culture and a vibe. Every country does too. Um, and I think you said it right. I think you need the vision. You need someone to kind of take the ball. Every team needs a captain, right, or whatever. Every team needs a coach. Everyone has a role to play. There's many leaders, but you need all those leaders to be on the same page, going by the same playbook, working in unison with each other, and hopefully we're on our way to being able to do that because there is so much potential. I don't know if there's any other initiatives we do get a gathering of the minds together. Have like a think tank. All the leaders just get together, have some lunch, just start the ball rolling, get all the influencers together, and maybe we don't have a formal way of doing it now. Why can't we just do something like that in the future to get on the same page? Has anything of that nature been thought of or been done recently that you know of?
I'm aware of that a number of members of council, probably all of them, were very busy in the field listening. And I think that, if you follow the mayor on social, he hasn't stopped since being elected, being in the public and listening. I joined him last week at CARP. This is a Canadian Association of Retired Persons. And again, we're listening to a demographic that's saying, we've retired, we've given, and now this is our situation. These are our concerns. So I think that the problem with the meeting of the minds is sometimes you limit that to the opinions of a very small group, where I think the approach we're taking now is to run into a lot of smaller groups and listening to a lot of opinions. And I think in addition to that is things like the town halls and the fire halls, is we're listening to a lot more of our population. I think that for me, that's been healthy in helping me make the what I believe to be the best decisions for the public. And for the viewers, again, I know elections are only 3.5 years away, but really between now and then, take it seriously. Look at who's running and what they're promising. What's their motivation for running? Are they genuinely concerned about the community, and have they shown that if they're already in office by what they've done, not what they've said, but by what they've done? And you want to probably make sure that you're finding somebody that's not doing this for the title, or somebody that's doing it for the salary that comes with that. They're actually doing it for the community. And when you get those types of persons involved, what'll happen is we're going to have some healthy debate, healthy discussions. We keep a strong leadership, and I really do believe in our current mayor, and I say that honestly. I think he's just been great so far. That we're going to start to see some greater things for our city. Not to say our city isn't great; it certainly is. I can't think of a place in the world I'd rather live than Sudbury, and I mean that. And when I was in an executive position with mining, I could have moved to other cities. I could have done other things. I love Sudbury. What we have in the Four Seasons, the lakes, the nature trails, all in all, the Sudbury Wolves, the Sudbury Five, these are all things that are important to me. The community aspect, knowing your neighbors and talking to them. I have family from down South community say, wow, I've never met my neighbor in our community. We just talk to each other. We help each other out. So there's just a lot to be said about our city. And I think that we're on the cusp of some greater things coming. A lot of challenges on the way. Things aren't going to happen overnight, but I truly believe that we're on a path to a greater city.
The future can be greater in Greater Sudbury. I think there you go. So,
Absolutely.
Mike, it's been great talking with you again today. We'll have to do this sooner again than later. And let's just pick a time and we'll go from there. But definitely want to have you back. It's been a great conversation. Obviously, a lot of people, commenting and involved in the conversation. And so you definitely have a lot of fans, I think, here. I've seen a lot of people agreeing with what you've been saying. So I think it's really, really great to have you on.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I wish you and all of your viewers a great day and a great week.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. We'll catch you soon.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.
Mike Perrott, Ward 5 Councillor here in Greater Sudbury. Great to have him on. And thanks for listening and watching, everyone. We'll be back same time, same place, God willing, tomorrow. Make sure to share. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.